This is the part of the cycle that we have decided to call the new moon. Why? Why is this new? Because nature's cycles seem to start at death. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's the evening. This is the best lighting that I have at this very moment. I hope that this recording won't be too comical with the lighting that I have, but I really do intend on publishing this, on posting this. So this is just what we're dealing with tonight. I really feel like even though it's 10 o'clock p.m., I really want to do something productive and I really want to make this video. This is a VR to James Feeney's New Moon Magic Tips and Tricks, and I really wanted to do an old school YouTube video and simply reply to someone's video without having any hashtags or anything like that involved. So this is just a VR that nobody asked for. Hope you like it. In that video he reminded me of a thought I had a long time ago now. So first things first, the new moon to me is this, the dark moon, where it's completely black. That is what I consider the new moon. I know that many people swear by what we are having now, actually at the time of recording. Don't know when this will go up, but they swear by the very slight beginning of the waxing moon, which is this, to be the new moon. But I like to keep things simple and fourfold, have 4 major moon phases. So, just to keep things super simple, this is the waxing moon, going to the full moon, waning moon, going to the dark moon, which is then also the new moon. So waxing is going towards the full moon. The full moon, we can see a perfect circle as far as we can tell from here on Earth in the night sky. Waning, the light that the moon is reflecting is again becoming less and less, and then new moon to me is the dark moon. We don't see her in the sky. I may have talked about this in a Dutch video. I liked so much that what we call the new moon is the dark moon in a symbolic way. And there are a lot of symbol things and interpretations that we can give to this, but for me I'm just going to share in this video what the main things are for me at the moment, or have been in the past as well. Let's just say up to this point. Don't overcomplicate things. So what I like exactly about the new moon, we decided to call the dark moon the new moon. I like that because we could even consider that the death of the light, the death of the moon. This is the part of the cycle that we have decided to call the new moon. Why? Why is this new? Because nature's cycles seem to start at death. A woman's cycle is connected to the cycles of the moon, and because a girl changes into a young woman by getting her first period, we start counting at the beginning of the cycle. At the beginning of the cycle, meaning when the period starts, when the bleeding starts. That is, of course, the death of potential life, if I may say that so roughly. Just a little yet important disclaimer. In this example, I am only talking about women who bleed, who have their monthly cycle, but I know that this is an incomplete example since there are many human beings who identify as women, are women, who do not experience the monthly bleeding. I just want to say you are not excluded from my thoughts and considerations. This is just something we know is connected to the phases of the moon, and since this is a video all about the moon phases, the lunar cycle, I did want to incorporate this. And either way, magic related to all of this is not restricted to only women either. So then the next cycle that seems to start at death, a witch's year. Meaning when we look at nature's cycle within a year, meaning the 4 different seasons before it finds itself again. So it starts at Samhain. Samhain is also known as Halloween, All Hallows Eve, fall, autumn. And I'm thinking, have you been paying attention? The cycle starts at death. Autumn is the death of nature, and it happens every year. And Samhain is the new year in the wheel of the year. After that, of course, we have a period of quiet, and then a quiet beginning of germination underneath the blanket of snow. And then new life is peeking through, and that brings us to spring, then summer, then fall again. I just thought that was really interesting. All of this are just thoughts that I had and that I wrote down and then I wanted to share with you. But here is for this peculiar thought that I had. The moon is most true when dark. 'Cause this connects to so many things. First of all, we know the moon reflects the light of the sun. Therefore, when we see the moon in the sky, we are actually seeing the sun's light, right? And I foolishly found myself thinking for a second, what would the moon look like in the sky if we would look up at her and see her alone, not reflecting the light of the sun? We know what that looks like. It's the new moon. It's the dark moon, the moonless nights. But you see, we love the light. We love looking up at the moon in awe. We are in awe at her beauty. She gives us some clarity on otherwise pitch black nights. The moon alone, in all her glory, would be dark, would be hidden, would not be there. In all her glory, we wouldn't see her. So that brings me to, we are talking about the sub and unconscious. The new moon, the dark moon, is also a good time for shadow work. It's a good time for going within. It's a good time to work with the unknown, work with things that you can't see, just like we cannot see the moon. Just quickly popping on here to mention this. Here I talked about a woman's cycle syncing with the moon. So whether syncing with the moon is something that can actually happen or not, a woman's cycle is most often associated with the new moon because when the period starts, it's a time of reflection, stillness, feminine energy, like honoring the divine feminine and, as I kept saying, feeling instead of doing. This aligns with what the new moon typically stands for. I was talking about moon lodges and that those are built for women to retrieve in when they have their moon, to be together and tap into that feminine lunar energy. It's not a time of action, it's a time of feeling and introspection, of stillness. And I just thought, God, imagine being able to stop everything, or rather pause everything once a month, hold off everything for a few days, to reflect, to let things flow. It is a nice idea to, at the same time, recharge, build up energy, you know. I'm thinking how much more potent this time would be, because it would actually make life cyclical again. And it would be closer to a matriarchal society than a patriarchal one, which we do seem to have now. Everyone knows that waking up early 5, 6, 7 times a week to go to a job is simply not always stimulating. I'm just the weirdo in the group of friends or at the family dinner table who has never had an actual 9-to-5 job, because I went from performing dancer to dance teacher and I've always been a freelancer. I'm not saying that that's better, absolutely not. But what I'm talking about is that, well, first of all, let's just say a regular job. It can keep stuff moving, keep things in motion. It can motivate and everything, but it can also just serve as keeping a person busy, and maybe that's on a level that isn't always beneficial to us, at least. And quickly popping on here again because I didn't finish my thoughts here and I did want to explain this a little bit better. I am a freelancer officially on paper, but now that I'm a teacher, I do have a fixed schedule. So I am just a freelancer on paper, really, because I should have, the regular contract and all that stuff, but it just doesn't work that way as a dance teacher. But you know what? That fixed schedule, I really do very much appreciate that, because I've been a freelancer all my life, and I know what it's like to not have a fixed schedule, and that is very difficult as well. So, on the other hand, you know, having experience in both sides of this subject, I do know now that I have a fixed schedule, I do have experience with that feeling of just being kept busy, in a sense. You know what I mean? I'm sure you know what I mean. And this much more fixed schedule where I have fixed days in the week that I worked, fixed hours in the week that I work, I very much appreciate that, because I know what to expect. It's great. But it is a part of this keep going system that we have today. And you know, in all honesty, I don't think we'll ever get to that point of having a cyclical system where we can have that monthly pause. I was really just dreaming away at this idea. But despite that probably never happening, I do think that it would actually be beneficial to a lot of us, because we seek this these cycles. We feel them within ourselves, and it's not reflected in daily life. Okay, that's it, and I will let you enjoy the rest of this video. Because we require something deeper and something higher, and those two things are equally important. We might just have more time for reflection and the deeper, higher connection and all that stuff in a system that respects different phases, different times within the month. Because the way that things are now, we feel the need to practice this, and we have to do it on the side, you know? I don't know. A girl can dream, right? It's funny how we define darkness by saying it's the absence of light. So it's easier for us to point out the light, obviously, than it is to point out the darkness, even though we are trying to explain the darkness. Because to us, darkness is absence, is not there, is nothing, no thing. And we can't comprehend that. We do not understand that. Because also, the moment that we acknowledge its existence, it stops being nothing and starts being something. It's a great big paradox that I just found myself in. This loop of thought. Anyway, I wanted to say that I agree with James, what he said in his video. We put, and I definitely understand, because I also love the full moon. You know, I love the moon in all her phases, but the full moon, it is something special. It is something beautiful in the sky, like something perfect in the sky, we could even say. And there's this brighter light, of course, but we do put so much emphasis on the full moon, on the beautiful bright full moon in the sky, in between the stars, that it's easy to forget the importance of the dark moon. Because as I said, it's harder to connect to something that supposedly isn't there, or doesn't seem to be there. It's all underneath the surface. You know, I don't really have any answers here. I just wanted to talk about this some more. It's, I also think that it's good to not be afraid to make your own moon phase lunar practice, to make it personal. I know, for instance, Kellyanne Maddox feels more connected to the half moon, because her matron that she works with is Hel, the Norse goddess of death. And Hel is often depicted with a half dead, half alive face. And therefore, you know, she finds the half moons to be more beneficial, more potent for her work. And it does sound quite perfect. Death is implied where there's life. When life is given, so is death. When we grow, so basically experience life, get to the next level or something like that, when we live, when we grow, we leave an old version of ourselves. When I set an intention and I decide to use the moon phases, or it just happened that way, love it when that synchronicity happens within the month, when I actually feel like setting a new intention and it is the new moon or the waxing moon. I usually like to prepare and set things on the waxing moon, because the dark moon is something that is more still. So waxing moon again goes towards that action, goes towards the growing of the moon that we see in the sky. The moon is growing in the sky, and the moon is actually, I don't know if you've ever noticed that, it's actually opening like a book, the pages being the light. This is my journal, it's black. So this would be the dark moon. We don't see her in the sky. Then we open the book slightly, and it's the waxing moon. Moon is growing. It's growing towards the full moon, which is when we get to read the pages or write the pages. And then finally, getting closer to the end of the book, it's again closing, you see, during waning moon, and there you go, the book is closed when the moon is dark. So in a full cycle of the moon phases, we get to read the moon. That's a little something I came up with. Copyright Astralladytarot. Set the book aside. You've just read this particular moon cycle, and this lunar cycle will never be repeated like this one ever again. I had these little candles, and they're not even in frame. So there. Hope that's better. So anyway, back to my usual intention setting. I start at the waxing moon. Then during full moon, this energy is heightened. I'm attracting it, and the energy is also being sent out. The moon wanes or closes, and therefore the intention is kind of settling in. And then the new moon is definitely, I definitely recognize my practice and how I feel about it in what James said. The new moon is a much more quiet time with a passive energy. It's much more about feeling what is there now kind of thing. Although, since I do a lot of things. I read tarot, I journal, I set an intention which requires different things in different situations. But you see, a ritual, if that makes it easier to understand what I'm talking about, a ritual tends to take hours for me, and that is not intentional. This is just because I'm getting into that bubble of called upon, of invoked energy, and I'm forgetting about time. I'm not feeling time passing by. I kind of consider this to be a good thing, since to me this started meaning that I just am giving the exact amount and kind of attention necessary. It's kind of like I start when it feels right and I end when it feels right. But then I've noticed that same goes for the amount of time that this working goes on. As many practitioners who work with the moon phases also start doing opening and end at the close, most of them will tell you that the entire working is done within the course of a month, within the course of that lunar cycle. For me and my lack of regard for time, it can easily take up to 3-4 months before I feel that completion of it is done. No need to put any more energy in it, or at least not as much attention is necessary. The introspection, the death, the absence of light, the beginning of a cycle, but perhaps without already envisioning a goal, without seeing the light, so without the ego, without wanting anything. There's a lot right there for us to uncover just by feeling. When we stop distracting ourselves, when we pause, when we sit in silence, stop doing, find out what's there. All of that is what the new moon means to me. I would love to hear what you have to say about all of this, so please continue this conversation in the comments. Of course, James's video is linked below. And you know, there are probably many more interesting things that we can include in this whole conversation. So I would love to hear it, and I will see you all the next time.